You ever get the feeling someone's watching you? Not the creepy horror movie kind of watching. No, I'm talking about the kind where every move you make, every excuse you whisper to yourself at 2 a.m., every dream you delay is being measured. What if I told you Elon Musk has been observing you in silence? Oh, relax. Not through cameras, not through satellites, through something far more dangerous. Your actions. See, while you scroll, while you complain, while you say, one day, there are people building rockets, literally. While most of the world laughed at impossible ideas, this man was launching companies like SpaceX into orbit and turning Tesla, Inc., into a revolution on wheels. And here's the twist. He's not watching your success. He's watching your discipline. He's watching how you react to failure. He's watching whether you quit when things get uncomfortable, because in a world full of noise, the real game is played in silence. You see, the Joker doesn't fear chaos. He studies it. He smiles at it. And today, we're going to talk about what happens when someone at the top of the world, someone who turned doubt into dominance, quietly observes who's serious and who's just pretending. So ask yourself before we go any further, if your life was a startup, would anyone invest in you? Let's begin. You think big dreams impress people? They don't. Not the real players. Not the ones who move industries like chess pieces. Elon Musk doesn't care about your vision board. He doesn't care about your motivational quotes reposted at midnight. He doesn't care how loudly you announce what you're about to do. He watches something far more dangerous, your discipline. Because dreams are cheap. Everyone has them. The broke have them. The comfortable have them. The scared have them. Dreams cost nothing. Discipline costs comfort. Discipline costs sleep. Discipline costs ego. And that's where most people quietly surrender. You say you want success. He's watching what time you wake up. You say you want greatness. He's watching how you react when things break. You say you want to change the world. He's watching how you handle small responsibilities. Discipline is repetition when nobody applauds. It's consistency when nobody believes. It's doing the work when the excitement fades and the spotlight disappears. Anybody can grind for a week. Anybody can hustle when they're inspired. But can you execute when you're tired? When you're doubted? When the results are invisible? That's what separates the spectators from the architects. Look at the pattern. When rockets exploded at SpaceX, the world laughed. Headlines mocked. Critics celebrated failure. Most people would have protected their pride and stepped back. Discipline said analyze, adjust, relaunch. Again, and again, and again. Not because it looked good, not because it felt good, but because the mission demanded it. Discipline ignores embarrassment. It ignores trends. It ignores moods. It's mechanical, cold, precise. You think billion-dollar outcomes are built on motivation? No. They're built on controlled habits repeated thousands of times. While others debate, while others procrastinate, while others prepare. The disciplined move. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Discipline exposes your priorities. If you don't have time, what you really mean is you lack structure. If you aren't ready, what you really mean is you fear discomfort. Discipline strips away illusion. It reveals whether you are serious or just entertained by the idea of being serious. In silence, patterns speak. The days you skip, the promises you delay, the shortcuts you justify. Every small compromise compounds. Discipline works the same way. One focused hour daily becomes expertise. One consistent action repeated becomes mastery. Not flashy, not dramatic, just relentless. Most people want intensity. Discipline prefers consistency. Intensity burns bright and dies fast. Consistency is quiet and unstoppable. It doesn't negotiate with emotion. It doesn't ask how you feel. It simply executes. And that's the real observation. Not whether you fail. Everyone fails. Not whether you struggle. Everyone struggles. But whether you return. Whether you adjust. Whether you show up again without applause. Because discipline is proof. Proof that you respect your ambition. Proof that your goals are not fantasies. Proof that when pressure rises, you don't disappear. Talk is noise. Intentions are noise. Excuses are noise. Discipline is signal. And signals are impossible to ignore. Silence is uncomfortable, isn't it? No validation. No one checking in to see if you're still trying. Just you and the work. That's where the truth hides. That's where the real builders separate themselves from the performers. Most people confuse visibility with progress. If it's not posted, it didn't happen. If it's not praised, it doesn't count. They announce every small move like it's a revolution. But the dangerous ones, they disappear. They go quiet. And while the world is busy talking, they're assembling something powerful behind closed doors. You don't hear the foundation being laid beneath a skyscraper. You don't hear the code compiling before the launch. You don't hear the thousands of failed calculations before a breakthrough. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is construction. When early rockets failed at SpaceX, there wasn't a motivational speech every hour explaining the process. There was data, testing, correction, long nights. The noise came from critics. The progress came from silence. That's the pattern. The loud ones chase attention. The silent ones chase improvement. Attention feels productive. Improvement actually is productive. One feeds the ego. The other feeds the mission. In silence, there's no external reward. No likes. No reassurance. Just discipline and repetition. That's why most people avoid it. Silence forces you to confront yourself. Your weaknesses become louder. Your doubts echo. There's no distraction to hide behind. But that's exactly why it works. Because when you build in silence, you remove performance pressure. You're not trying to look successful. You're trying to become capable. There's a massive difference. Looking successful requires strategy. Becoming capable requires sacrifice. While others are explaining what they plan to do, you're studying. While they're debating ideas, you're testing them. While they're seeking approval, you're refining skill. Silence becomes your shield. It protects your focus from outside interference. Think about it. Every major breakthrough looks sudden to the public. Overnight success. Instant domination. But behind that moment is usually years of quiet preparation. Years of failure no one witnessed. Years of repetition no one celebrated. Silence allows compounding to happen unnoticed. 1 hour a day in isolation becomes hundreds of hours in a year. Hundreds of hours become mastery. Mastery becomes leverage. And by the time the world notices, you're already ahead. The problem is, silence feels slow. It feels invisible. And in a world addicted to constant updates, invisibility feels like irrelevance. But invisibility is often incubation. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. The most critical growth happens where nobody sees it. If you constantly broadcast your progress, you risk substituting praise for performance. You get rewarded for announcing instead of executing. Silence removes that temptation. It forces results to speak instead of words. And when results finally do speak, they're undeniable. Because noise can be ignored, but undeniable outcomes. They demand attention. Excuses are seductive. They sound logical. They sound reasonable. They even sound intelligent. That's what makes them dangerous. Failure is honest. It tells you something didn't work. An excuse, on the other hand, tells you it wasn't your fault, and that's where growth dies. Failure is an event. An excuse is a habit. One happens to you. The other is created by you. When something collapses, when a project flops, when effort doesn't produce results, that's neutral. It's data. It's feedback. But the moment you say, I didn't have enough time, or the market wasn't right, or people didn't support me. You shift from analysis to avoidance. Excuses protect your ego. They keep your self-image intact. They whisper, "You're still capable, it was just the circumstances." And maybe sometimes that's true. But if every setback has a convenient explanation, you never confront the uncomfortable pattern underneath. Failure can teach you precision. Excuses teach you comfort. Look at high-level execution. When rockets exploded at SpaceX, the public saw failure. Engineers saw variables. They didn't say, "Well, space is hard." They didn't say, "The pressure was unfair." They dissected the mistake. They owned it. They recalculated. Failure became fuel. Imagine if they had chosen excuses instead. Progress would have stopped at the first explosion. Excuses are louder than failure because they come with emotion. They come with storytelling. They come with justification. You can explain an excuse for hours. Failure needs only one sentence. It didn't work. And here's the brutal truth. Repeated excuses create invisible ceilings. You start believing your own explanations. You start lowering standards without realizing it. You start negotiating with effort. I'll try again when things are better. I'll start when I'm more ready. I'll push harder when life calms down. Life rarely calms down. Excuses are comfortable because they delay responsibility. They push action into the future. But every delay compounds. Every postponed attempt strengthens hesitation. Over time, you're no longer avoiding one uncomfortable task. You're avoiding a lifestyle of accountability. Failure, ironically, is cleaner. It hurts. It stings. But it's direct. It forces a choice: improve or quit. There's clarity in that pain. Excuses blur the line. They keep you in a gray zone where you neither improve nor fully give up. You stay trying. You stay planning. You stay almost ready, and almost never builds anything meaningful. When you remove excuses, your standards rise instantly. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What could I have done differently?" That single shift changes trajectory, because responsibility is power. If it's your fault, you can fix it. If it's always external, you're helpless. Excuses feel safe in the moment, but long-term they erode confidence. Deep down, you know when you're rationalizing. You know when you could have pushed harder. That quiet awareness chips away at self-respect. Failure challenges you. Excuses diminish you. One builds resilience. The other builds fragility. And fragility shatters under pressure. Comfort is seductive. It feels safe, predictable, controlled. You know what tomorrow looks like. You know how much effort is required. You know exactly how far you can go without stretching. And that's the trap. Innovation has never been born from comfort. Pressure is the forge. It squeezes, stretches, and exposes weaknesses. It forces decisions. It demands adaptation. When things are easy, creativity sleeps. When survival is at stake, the mind sharpens. Most people pray for ease. The innovators learn to respect tension. Think about it. When deadlines are distant, effort slows. When consequences are small, standards drop. But when the margin for error disappears, focus intensifies. You cut distractions. You eliminate excuses. You move with precision. Pressure clarifies priorities. At Tesla, Inc., there were moments when production targets seemed impossible. Financial strain tightened. Critics predicted collapse. Under that weight, average leadership would have scaled back vision to reduce risk. Pressure could have justified retreat. Instead, pressure forced optimization. Processes were redesigned. Efficiency became obsession. Limits were challenged because they had to be. Pressure doesn't create weakness. It reveals it. If a structure collapses under stress, the flaw was already there. If a person quits when challenged, the commitment was never solid. Comfort hides these cracks. Pressure exposes them, and exposure is painful. When you're pushed beyond what's convenient, Your identity feels threatened. Doubt grows louder. Fatigue becomes real. That's the moment most people interpret discomfort as a sign to stop. Innovators interpret it as a signal to adapt. Comfort says, stay consistent with what you know. Pressure says, evolve or be replaced. There is no transformation without friction. Muscles grow under resistance. Skill sharpens under repetition. Vision strengthens under opposition. Every breakthrough carries a backstory of strain. The irony is that comfort often feels productive. You can organize, plan, discuss, refine endlessly, all within safe boundaries. But nothing disruptive emerges from safety alone. Disruption requires risk. Risk creates pressure. Pressure demands growth, and growth feels unstable before it feels powerful. When resources are limited, creativity expands. When time is short, focus intensifies. Constraints force innovation because they remove laziness as an option. You stop waiting for ideal conditions and start working with what exists. Pressure eliminates fantasy. It deals in reality. It asks, what can you do right now with what you have? It demands, how fast can you learn? It challenges. How resilient are you when outcomes are uncertain? Comfort whispers reassurance. Pressure demands proof. And here's the deeper layer. The more responsibility you carry, the more pressure increases. Leaders don't escape stress, they absorb it. They metabolize it. They convert tension into execution. That conversion is what separates average performers from industry shapers. Without pressure, urgency disappears. Without urgency, momentum fades. Without momentum, vision stalls. Pressure compresses time. It forces acceleration. It forces sharper decisions. It forces courage. Most people try to escape it. Innovators build within it. Imagine walking into a room full of serious investors. No emotions. No sympathy. Just sharp eyes scanning numbers, patterns, behavior. Now imagine the product on the table is you. If your life were a startup, would anyone invest? Not based on your ideas. Everyone has ideas. Not based on your potential. Potential is cheap. Investors don't fund potential alone. They fund execution, traction, resilience, leadership. They fund proof. So where's your proof? A startup isn't judged by how passionate the founder sounds. It's judged by consistency, growth metrics, adaptability under pressure. If your habits were quarterly reports, what would they show? Growth or repeated promises without delivery? Investors ask hard questions. What problem are you solving? What makes you different? How do you respond to setbacks? Now flip that inward. What value do you bring into a room? What skills have you sharpened? How do you behave when plans collapse? Because collapse always comes. When early launches failed at SpaceX, funding didn't magically increase because the vision sounded inspiring. The pressure intensified. Results had to improve. Systems had to tighten. Execution had to become undeniable. Belief alone wasn't enough. Performance had to catch up. That's how real evaluation works. If your life were a company, discipline would be your operating system. Focus would be your capital allocation. Time would be your runway. Every distraction would be an unnecessary expense. Every broken promise to yourself would be a missed milestone. How many milestones have you postponed? Investors look for founders who stay steady in chaos, not emotional spikes, not bursts of motivation, stability. Strategic thinking, measured risk. If your mood dictates your effort, your company looks unstable. If you quit when results are slow, your valuation drops instantly. And here's the uncomfortable layer. Investors also look at the team. Who surrounds you? Are you building relationships that elevate standards, or are you partnered with mediocrity? Environment affects valuation. Standards compound collectively. A strong startup shows traction. Even small wins matter if they're consistent. Daily improvement, measurable learning, increasing capacity. If you can't point to tangible growth over the past year, what exactly are you scaling? Because scaling amplifies what already exists. If your habits are weak, scaling increases chaos. If your structure is strong, scaling multiplies impact. Vision is attractive, but sustainability is essential. Can you endure long cycles without applause? Can you survive dry seasons without abandoning the mission? Endurance increases confidence. Emotional volatility decreases it. And let's talk about risk. Every investor calculates downside. If they invest in you, your reliability, your leadership, your future. What's the probability you'll fold under pressure? What's the likelihood you'll pivot wisely instead of panicking? Self-respect is your internal valuation. The more promises you keep, the higher it rises. The more excuses you tolerate, the lower it sinks. So strip away inspiration. Remove hype. Remove fantasy projections. If your life were audited today, habits, resilience, discipline, adaptability, would the numbers justify belief? Or would the meeting end with polite rejection?